Hello and welcome to the CBS This Morning Facebook Live event. I'm CBS News contributor Jamie Wax, and with me is Erik Davis of Fandango. Thanks for joining us here in the Toyota Green Room.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk Oscars today, which is one of my favorite things to talk with you about.
Yes.
You and I follow movies all year long.
Yes.
You in a very, very focused and specific way for all the things you write on your blog and the different things that you publish for Fandango. So what do you think of 2017 as a movie year, Erik?
Yeah, I thought it was a good year. I think how we wound up with a film, a creature feature, nominated for 13 Oscars, you know, that just speaks volumes, I think, about the kind of year that it was. I think it's a year that we saw a lot of different movies. I think it's a year that we saw genre movies kind of say, look, we're here and we can be recognized as kind of Best Picture nominees, you know, with Get Out is in there as well as The Shape of Water. And so I think it's a year where things are beginning to change. I feel very much like we are in this age of empowerment, and it's kind of affecting the industry in some really interesting ways. It's affecting the Academy. It started affecting them, I think, a couple of years ago when they started bringing new members to their Academy, more diverse base, a younger base. And so we're starting to see like that maybe Moonlight winning last year was a sign of that, is a sign of the changing. You know, a lot of experts kind of rely on historical stats to predict the Oscars because that's how much the same it's been for so long, is that you can look back at its history and say, well, this, and this happened, so this is going to win. You can't really do that anymore. You know, you can still do it to a certain extent, but I think moving forward, it's going to be a lot more of a wild card. And so this year, I think it is a wild card. There's a lot of really great films nominated, still smaller independent films, not as big of blockbusters, but a good range of films, a good variety of movies, and they're all really entertaining to watch. Even
the distribution model is more diverse and crazier than ever. You've got Mudbound, which was produced for Netflix, which is their first, I mean, it's a leader in many categories. Yeah. It's their first nominated feature that's not a documentary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they had a movie a couple years ago called Beasts of No Nation that I thought was just fantastic. And I walked out, I saw it on the big screen at the Toronto Film Festival, and I was like, this movie, Idris Elba, gonna get a nomination. This movie is incredible. I had never seen Idris kind of act that way before, and he was snubbed. And that was the year of Oscars So White. And I think, you know, Netflix has been trying to kind of permeate this space and say, look, we can make these kinds of movies too. And then I think there's just been this kind of push and pull between Academy members who are like, well, it's not on, you know, 3,000 screens. And so I don't know if I can treat it like it's a Best Picture contender, you know. But I think Mudbound came along and Netflix kind of re-strategized the way that they push out some of these movies. And I think Mudbound has been elevated above where Beasts of No Nation was. Will that mean it will win an Oscar? I don't know. As we were speaking before, I've been flip-flopping in terms of whether or not it can hit in this one category for adapted screenplay. But I think that Netflix is trying to make a move, and they're doubling down on content. They're making tons and tons of movies. Some of them aren't well-liked, and some of them are well-liked. And so I think it's only a matter of time before we see a Netflix and an Amazon in that Best Picture kind of category.
I mean, according to a Netflix executive, they're spending $8 billion this year on some 700 projects.
That should get us a Best Picture nominee eventually.
Yeah, eventually that's going to get you there. Okay, let's talk. Let's start with supporting actor and actress.
Okay.
This is always a rich category for creativity and actually historically some of the best on-screen performances ever. Let's start with supporting actress. You've got Mary J. Blige for Mudbound, who is the first person ever nominated in an acting category and for Best Song in the same year, right?
Yeah.
And also, if she wins, will be the first person winning in an acting category who was directed by a woman of color, which is kind of crazy to think that that's actually a milestone that could be reached this year.
It is pretty crazy, but that just speaks to sort of what's happening right now at the industry, where these voices are being elevated and we're starting to see them permeate into these categories. And I think we're just going to see more and more of this. And it's crazy to say that these records are being broken, because it was like, this should have happened like years ago, but it's starting to happen now. It's going to keep happening.
Well, look at this category. This is a great group of performances. You got Mary J. Blige for Mudbound. Allison Janney for I, Tonya, Leslie Manville for Phantom Thread, Laurie Metcalf, great performance in Lady Bird, and Octavia Spencer in The Shape of Water. What's your prediction?
Really great. Supporting actress is always my favorite category because they're always these kind of wild performances that steal scenes and that you watch them and you're like, yeah, this movie is really great, but I loved watching that character. I will say, when I saw I, Tonya, also at the Toronto Film Festival, I watched Allison Janney and I just could not take my eyes off her. I was like, I don't know what other performances are going to be in a supporting actress category, but this is her. You know, I've always loved Allison Janney. I think this is sort of, in some ways, the year of the character actor. I think the frontrunners in these acting categories are all sort of actors that sometimes they've been the second or third or fourth player in a movie, but, you know, they're always really great. They're always, like, the best part of that movie.
Absolutely.
And Allison
we'll get to that
Janney
in supporting actor, too, because there's one there that you know
exactly
what I'm talking about.
But Allison Janney, that's who I think is going to win it. She's won all the precursors.
I think that's a good call. I love Laurie Metcalf and Lady Bird. I think she could take it, but Allison Janney, I think, probably will, and I think the Bird deserves a special, Bird on Her Shoulder deserves a special award. Supporting actor, you've got Willem Dafoe, The Florida Project, Woody Harrelson, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Richard Jenkins for The Shape of Water, Christopher Plummer for All the Money in the World, and Sam Rockwell, who I was referring to earlier, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Sam Rockwell, probably the most under-recognized person who is almost always the best thing in every movie he's in. I think he'll take that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sam Rockwell. I think there was a momentum for Willem Dafoe, and there still kind of is, but nobody really saw The Florida Project, which is a shame. And if you haven't seen The Florida Project, I would say go see this movie, because they kind of drop this veteran actor amidst all of these people who've never acted before. You know, and Brooklyn Prince, who plays the little girl, and her mom is great. And it's just a really kind of experimental film that, and the way they shot it and made it is really great. And Willem Dafoe is so natural and great, especially a guy who usually plays a villain. To see him in this role was really refreshing. But yeah, I think Sam Rockwell's going to take it. The versatility of that character, you know, and I think there's been some bubbling controversy around
There has, a little bit political backlash against the arc of his character in this story.
But I mean, my sense is that, look, you don't always have to like a character. You don't always have to like what they're about, but you could like watching them, you know? And I like watching Sam Rockwell's character. I don't agree with where he comes from, and I don't necessarily think he's redeemed at the end of this movie at all, but I just love watching him.
All right, let's go to lead actor now. You got Timothée Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name, Daniel Day-Lewis for Phantom Thread, Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out, Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour, and Denzel Washington, Roman J. Israel, Esquire. You and I were in agreement about who's going to win this category, I believe, when we spoke on the CBS This Morning podcast, which you should also check out. Are you still feeling that way?
Yeah, I mean, look, without Gary Oldman in this category, I think Timothée Chalamet wins it and makes a big, bold statement, and everybody kind of wraps their arms around him, and then he shoots up to sort of superstardom, which I think he still can get there, because I think he's got a lot of fans, but I think it's Gary Oldman. You watch Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour as Winston Churchill, and you say they should have just given him the Oscar 6 months ago for playing that role. I mean, it's just, you watch it and you're like, yep, it's him. It's him. Give him the Oscar. He's fantastic, and at the makeup job, I think they're going to win makeup as well. Because is fantastic. And it's interesting to note that if he does win, Gary Oldman, it'll be the first time in history that 2 different actors have won an Emmy and an Oscar 6 months apart for playing the same character. John Lithgow, playing Winston Churchill in The Crown.
They should just give Churchill a posthumous Oscar, and then every actor who plays him can pass it around.
Yes, we're in peak Churchill time.
This is good Churchill. This is a good moment for Churchill time. All right, lead actress, we got Sally Hawkins, The Shape of Water, very difficult and nuanced performance. Frances McDormand, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Margot Robbie, I, Tonya. Saoirse Ronan, I should say, Lady Bird, and Meryl Streep for The Post. Her 21st Oscar nomination, record-breaking for an actor. Unbelievable to think that. John Williams, we should say, his 51st Oscar nomination this year. But she still holds the record for the acting categories. Who do you think's got this category?
Not Meryl Streep, unfortunately. I mean, if it was up to me, and I think we've spoken about this before, I love Sally Hawkins. I love how nuanced that performance is. She plays a mute character in The Shape of Water, so everything about her she has to say with her face, and it's really incredibly hard to do as an actress, and so a lot of respect to her for that role. But I think Frances McDormand in 3 Billboards, she is just fantastic. I was watching a little bit of that again last night and just watching her, and she's so forceful and really takes control of her own sort of destiny in that movie in a way that's just really fun to watch and really crazy to watch.
And within a character with clear boundaries, she makes some incredibly surprising choices in the scenes. Just a beautiful performance.
Yes.
All right, let's quickly go through Best Picture. We've got Call Me By Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Who takes Best Picture?
It's between The Shape of Water, 3 Billboards, and Get Out. I am going with Get Out. I think Jordan Peele's movie is going to sneak in there and surprise everyone. People have said this movie is not a Best Picture contender. It's not Best Picture quality. I say you're out of your mind. This is a box office juggernaut. It's widely entertaining. It's wickedly a conversation starter. And it's just the kind of movie that you want to rally around. It's a genre game changer. What isn't Best Picture material there? So I think it's going to be Get Out, but don't count out The Shape of Water. I think one of those movies is going to win. I think that younger Academy base, it's going to be on all of their lists, this Get Out. And so if it's high on their list, I think it could. I think Shape of Water and 3 Billboards could split the vote, and I think Get Out slips in there.
I sure hope you're right. I'm rooting for it, so I'm going to agree, because just out of sheer desire to see that film get recognized for all the ways, as we spoke about, it could have gone wrong. I don't think I've seen a movie that could have gone off the rails and been just, not even bad, just mediocre in some way, that was trying to balance 3 genres that did it as artfully as that one did. All right, I should mention Erik Davis is going to take over our Twitter account on CBS This Morning during the Oscars and live tweet the Oscars. If you've never seen this man live tweet, it's a very sarcastic, knowledgeable. If you love tiny factoids that you never knew about every performer, presenter, and category, this is the man to follow on Twitter. So you can check that out on CBS This Morning's Twitter. Also, check us out, having a conversation with Matt Zoller-Seitz of New York Magazine and RogerEbert.com on the CBS This Morning podcast. I'm Jamie Wax. Thanks for watching CBS This Morning on Facebook Live.